Today, I'm hopping on to talk about three things that I see leaders often overlooking at work with their teams when they're having one on one conversations. And these three simple shifts, if you can understand how to make them for yourself and your team, they actually have a really tremendous impact in reducing miscommunication, in improving team cohesion, and really just helping things run a lot more smoothly.
Welcome to The Self-Led Leader, a podcast for high performers who want to lead from alignment, not expectation. I'm Dr. Christina, a social psychologist, and I'm here to help you lead with clarity, not chaos. This show is about what happens before the strategy, your mindset, your nervous system, the inner leadership that shapes everything you say and do. Because presence isn't about being loud, it's about being aligned. Let's get right into it.
So, the first thing that most leaders I work with overlook is understanding the simple fact that everyone has a different learning style. And I know that sounds incredibly simple, but here's why it's important. We are so used to doing things from our perspective that we naturally assume most people do it the exact same way. Especially when you're busy, when you're under stress, when you have 72,000 things to think about at work. Thinking about how someone else learns falls to the bottom of the list pretty quickly. And so, because most leaders are so used to doing things their way, they often start to fall into the trap of thinking that their way is the best way. They often think that just because they've done something and it's worked for them, that is the best way that they should recommend for their team. And of course, there's caveats. This is often the case-ish. But here's the thing. Everyone has a different learning style, okay? Some people are auditory listeners. That means they need to hear the information in order to absorb it, to process it, to understand it. Some people are visual learners. They need to see it. They need to have a video, a model, a graphic, someone doing it step by step in front of them for them to actually process the information and absorb it. Some people are more of a kinesthetic learner. They need to touch it. They need to do it themselves. They need to put it into practice and do it step by step for it to stick. Okay, some people are a mix. And so what ends up happening, especially in situations where leaders need to give feedback to their team, or in situations where there's like onboarding, training, someone has done something not in the best way, and you want to educate your team member on how to do it, the default tends to be to just give them the auditory information, to just tell them, right? Like, you did this thing, I need you to do it this way, go do this, 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 this. And that's a very auditory learning style that most leaders default to automatically because it's the easiest. It's the easiest to just say it or just type it out and just give them the information. But here's the catch. For anyone that's not a primary auditory learner, that can lead to confusion. That can make it very hard for them to actually absorb the information and to process it. Okay, and I'll get into this next point a little bit later, but if you are a leader that tends to be more in a rush, more stressed, a little bit more intense or to the point, it can be very hard for your team member to stop and say, I didn't quite catch that. It can also be embarrassing. It can be uncomfortable. It can be awkward, especially if they need to see it. It can be very embarrassing and awkward and almost feel like a waste of time for them to ask you to visually show them what you mean. And so what ends up happening? There's miscommunication. There's misalignments, there's frustration. You, as the leader that told them what to do, can easily get frustrated and think that there's something wrong with them, that they're not doing their job properly, because clearly you told them what to do. But you are overlooking the fact that the way that you told them doesn't align with the way that they actually learn. So, as a leader, moving forward, I know it can be a little bit silly and it could feel like a waste of time to consider what someone's learning style is, but it is such a simple fix that has tremendous positive implications. So when you are giving feedback to your team, and every team member will likely have a different learning style, when you're giving them feedback, when you are giving them instructions, when you are training them on something new, when you're onboarding a new team member, take the time to just ask the simple questions. Is this how you best learn this new information? Did you understand the way that I said it, or do you need me to show you? Do you need an example of how it's done? It's just a simple follow-up question that can make all the difference between someone feeling uncomfortable and embarrassed to admit that they don't quite get it and trying to put the pieces together after the fact, and them getting the support that they need to actually do it well and to save everyone so much time. Okay? So start asking, start noticing, and start remembering. If you are a type A, very analytical leader and you love having things organized and in order, start making a spreadsheet of each team member that you have. Note things like what their learning style is, what their communication style is, what their preferences are, what their motivations are. Small things like this that you understand about each team member make a tremendous difference in how you show up, how you speak to them, and the points that you lean into to get them to understand what you need from them and improve in the way that you need them to. Okay? So, just to recap, everyone's got a different learning style. It's important to understand what it is and to tailor the information, the feedback, the training that you're giving them to match the learning style that they have. So, ask them what their learning style is. Ask them if they need any additional support, any different ways of understanding. Maybe you have a previous presentation that you can give them. If they're a visual learner, that will help them to see the layout, right? Maybe you have an SOP listed and they can go through it if they are like an auditory learner and they can read it and they can process it that way, right? Start to tailor it to each team member. If there's miscommunication, if something, kind of slipped through the cracks and they didn't quite get it, take a deep breath, calm yourself, and then give them the support that they need. Because when you can take those extra 2 minutes in the moment to actually tailor it to each team member a little bit better, that helps save so much time and so much effort and so much frustration down the line. So the second point that's often overlooked is when it comes to active listening. The topic of active listening seems to be super trendy, and it seems to be super hard for many people to actually master. And that's okay. I totally understand that because we're all busy. We're all stressed out. We all have 72 tabs open in our minds of things that we need to do. Most people these days are slightly dysregulated in their nervous system. Maybe you've had too much coffee, you're lacking sleep, the stress is catching up to you. It is hard to stop and give someone your full attention and actually listen to them. I have a whole theory, I have a whole masterclass that I teach around active listening and how the first step that's most often overlooked for people is creating the mental space to actually listen, is taking the time to do a little bit of that inner work that everyone loves to talk about, but to actually identify what your triggers are and to know how to react to them and to know how to anticipate them and to make the space so that you can actually give someone your full attention. But when you are listening to your team member, when a team member comes to you with a problem, an issue, a suggestion, most leaders are overlooking this simple point. And that is that when people come to you, some people come to you to be heard and other people come to you to be helped. And sometimes the same person will just want to vent and they just want to be heard. And sometimes they come to you because they actually need your support. Now, the catch is most leaders are just jumping into things and giving suggestions. They're not actually taking the time to let their team member fully express themselves, fully express their points, fully express the things that they need to say before jumping in with suggestions. And when that disconnect is present, it can lead to frustration in the team member. So let's say your team member is overwhelmed. There's a project that's been delayed by a few months. They're working with other teams. It's not going well. And they come to you to talk about it. If they are in an emotional position where they just want to vent about it, they just want to be heard, they just want to be validated in their feelings, and you are automatically jumping in with suggestions, trying to be helpful, you are going to leave them emotionally unsatisfied. They're going to feel like you're micromanaging them, like you're not taking the time to actually hold space for them and hear them. They're going to feel dismissed, maybe even misunderstood. And then it's going to create a rift in your relationship with them. On the other hand, if you are trying to be hands off and you're trying to be emotionally supportive and you're just sitting there listening to them and just, they're there, it will be okay. You're doing so amazing. You'll be great. And they actually need help from you. Well, there's a disconnect again, and they're going to be frustrated and they're going to say, what? Like, I need help. I need you to tell me what to do. I need you to brainstorm with me and figure this out. I know it will be okay, but help me get there, right? So when there's that disconnect, it doesn't work. And it leads to, again, disconnect between you and your team members. And so, what is so important for leaders to start to understand is that every interaction will be different. Especially when you have multiple team members, you kind of have to start to know the vibe and the energy and the needs of each team member separately, tying back into each team member's motivation, learning style, etc. It's all interconnected. But when a team member comes to you, let them speak fully. Let them express themselves. Let them say what they need to say without you having the urge to interrupt and respond because you're being helpful. And then take a moment and pause and just hold that space for them. And in that moment, that's when the other person will likely either keep venting and you'll get a very good indication that they just want to be heard, or they may stop and they may look to you for suggestions. Once you've held that space for them, it's fair and it's great and it's actually super useful to ask them, do you want to be heard or helped? Are you looking for suggestions or do you just want to get this out? Would you like some help brainstorming? Rather than just jumping in with what you think is best, just ask. And asking, again, it's one of these simple things that is so often overlooked because for some reason, most of us start to think that the simple things aren't worth it, that they're so obvious that we shouldn't do them. But it's these micro moments that create amazing leaders, that create ripple effects within their teams. So the next time your team member comes to you, I want you to take a moment, hold that space, hold that moment of silence without jumping in. And then before you jump in, make it a point to ask them, do they want help or do they just want to be heard about the situation? Okay. And then you can act accordingly. If they just want to be heard, you're their cheerleader. Hurrah, they're there. You'll be okay. Let me know what I can do to support you. Let me know if you need help moving forward. If they want to be helped, great. That's when your natural instinct to give them solutions, to help them brainstorm, to tell them what to do, to course correct comes in handy. Perfect. Okay. Again, it's the simple things that make the biggest difference. And now, the third thing that's so often overlooked, and this can make the biggest difference of all, it's starting to understand your own nervous system regulation and your own mental overload as a leader. That is something that is so fundamentally crucial and yet so often overlooked and dismissed. Okay. Your mental overload, your nervous system, especially if it's dysregulated, is the foundation of how you think, act, and respond to everything else in and out of work. So if you are finding yourself at a place where you feel like you have 7,000 tabs open, some of them are loading, some of them have crashed, you're not sure what's going on, everything feels stressful, you're thinking about 72 things at once, you feel like you have had way too much coffee and you've got these like shakes and anxiety. If you are starting to feel like you are past max capacity, that's a problem. Okay. I know that it's often easy to overlook. It's hard to change, especially when you're in it. And I've been in it for many years. When you're in it, it's hard to even imagine what can possibly change to shift things. You've got so many things on the go. You've got so many meetings. You don't have time to stop and actually calm down and to calm your nervous system down. But when you are in a place of mental overload, when your nervous system is starting to get dysregulated because you've been under too much stress, you stop thinking the way that you would optimally. Okay. Your thinking starts to get deteriorated. You start to get brain fog. You get more fatigue. You're worse at making decisions. And more importantly, when it comes to your team, you stop being the leader that you aspire to be and you start to be stressed. Your tone starts to change. You start to be more like snappy and a little bit more bitter with them. They may come to you for help and you'll just be annoyed, right? You'll just be aggravated. These kinds of emotions start to come up with your team and your team definitely feels it. And so if your team members need help and they're coming to you for suggestions or for advice or for help with a problem and you're snappy with them, you're stressed, you're angry, your tone is negative, they will start to feel that. And that will spread within the team and that will ripple down. And, the consequences can get so much worse where your team may even stop coming to you and start delaying getting help from you. And then that can just exacerbate problems that are going on. And so you, as the leader, needs to really take ownership and recognition of the fact that you are at the center of your team and you're the foundation of your team. And if you are letting yourself get to a place where you are way too stressed, you're not patient, you're snapping at them, you're not helping them the way that you aspire to be, it's your job to figure out how to fix it for yourself. Whether that means being intentional to take breaks, whether that means making sure you're eating healthier and drinking less coffee, breath work, like any sort of nervous system regulation and de-stressing that you need for yourself, you need to make sure you're getting it done. And again, I know it's hard. And I know that it's hard to make that a priority. But when you make the switch and understand that that is the center of how you act everywhere else, you start to understand why it's a priority. Like you can go through your day being dysregulated, snapping at people, having a short temper, brain fog, feeling like you're working on 7 projects at once and none of them are really moving forward. But why would you continue doing that to yourself? If something like regulating your nervous system can help you come to work feeling calmer, feeling more grounded and centered, feeling like you're able to handle challenges and actually process them and deal with them effectively, rather than feeling like your entire body's going to shut down and you're just angry at the fact that there's another thing that went wrong. Like imagine the ripple effects and the 2 different types of leaders that you can be. And again, you're at the center of your team. Everything about you, the way that you operate, your behavioral patterns, your energetic state, it trickles to your team. And so if you're constantly showing up angry and bitter and like a ball of stress, like a just big, dark, angry cloud, that will go to your team as well. And then the entire team will be dysregulated and not functional. And then imagine at the end of the year at your performance review, how terrible you're going to look and how terrible you're going to feel and just how the repercussions of that continue to spread. And so to recap, the 3 points that I often see being completely overlooked in the leadership space. Number 1, understand that your team has different learning styles and you should be leaning into that. You should be helping them understand things that work for them. It saves time, it saves energy, it just helps the team run smoother. Number 2, don't forget that people want to be helped and sometimes they want to be heard. And as the leader, you need to be able to hold space for both opportunities. Sometimes your team will come to you just to vent because you are their safe space. You are the one that they can go to when things are not going well. And that is actually a good thing. Okay. Again, you don't want to encourage too much venting every day because that starts to cross the lines. But there will be times where you need to acknowledge that, hold space, and then ask if they want to be helped or heard. And then number 3, again, make sure you understand that you are the center of your team and how you are showing up and whether or not you are in mental overload affects every other decision that you make that day. And so there's so much simplicity in this, but there's so many positive repercussions that come from understanding these things. We are all creatures of habit. We all have the same thoughts every single day. We all tend to do things the same way every single day. You're probably having the same coffee at roughly the same time, driving the same route to work every day, wearing the same type of outfit. Like we are creatures of habit. And if you allow yourself to get in these bad habits of not listening or not helping, not holding space, not regulating your nervous system, that will continue to spiral down. And next thing you know, it's been a year, it's been 6 months, it's been 3 months, and you look back and you say, like, why aren't things changing? Why aren't things improving? Well, you're not doing the things to make them get better. You're actually reinforcing the things that are making them worse without taking the moment to recognize that. And so, my friends, it's not, if you're in any of those positions, it's not the end of the world. There's always opportunity for change. It just takes intentional thought and intentional action and really recognizing that you are doing the same things every day out of habit. And that's just the way that our minds work. Our minds are literally wired to do that because you have done things so many times that you've wired your neural connections to function that way. And breaking that habit, breaking that pattern takes time, takes energy, takes effort, but it is possible and it is feasible. And it's something that you can do as well if you commit the time, the energy, and the effort. And I know it can seem, again, like it's overwhelming and like you already have 17 things on the go. And why would this right? Like that's the feeling. So many people that I work with when we get into this work, it's almost like a sigh of like, I have to do this. And it seems like so much work. But I'm going to challenge you on that and really think about where are you going to be a year from now if nothing changes? For most people, you're not going to be in the exact same spot. You're actually going to be somewhere slightly worse because doing the same negative things doesn't just keep you at a negative baseline, it makes you decrease. And that's what most people are overlooking. So, unless you are intentionally doing positive things to slowly increase, you're not going to experience the things that you want. Okay. So, if this is something that you need a little bit of support with, if this is something that you need to train your team on, reach out to me. It's okay. You can do it. You're capable of change, you're capable of improvement. It's just starting to understand who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it, what the things are that aren't working, and just making these simple shifts that are truly so transformational and effective. So, to start to improve the way that you show up as a leader, to start to improve the way that you show up for your team, and then that just has so many amazing ripple effects for everything else in your life. Because when you can really adopt these things at an identity level, if you just make it your lifestyle, it becomes so much easier to do them. And that way you're not showing up at work fake, like, okay, time to listen. Am I going to help or am I just going to hear them today? Like, it's not fake. It's a way of life. It's a way of being. And when you can integrate that into who you are naturally, that's when you stop feeling like I have to sit straight and I have to do this and I have to do this to seem confident and I have to show up in a way and it's overwhelming. But when you integrate it into who you are naturally, it's just the way that you are. And that's when people start to recognize you for like, oh my God, like this person's such a great leader. Oh my God, this person's such a great listener. Wow, I've never had someone explain things to me so clearly while training. Like it just becomes who you are. And it's a beautiful part of the transformation. I hope I've left you with something interesting to think about. Again, make it a good day. Do one thing today to help you break out of your patterns and to just start being a little bit better. Okay. All right. I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.